forward.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, President Abdelmajid Tebboune has said that the celebration of the Victory Day was taking place within a regional and international context that requires from everyone to combine their efforts to unite the ranks and strengthen the interior front. The Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Attaf has received a telephone call from his Slovak counterpart Juraj Blanar, in which the two sides evoked the efforts deployed by Algeria within the UN Security Council to halt the ongoing Israeli aggression against the Palestinian people. As the UN affirmed that the situation of famine prevailing in Gaza results from the restrictions imposed by the Israeli occupation on the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza, more Palestinians were killed in new bombardments of the territory. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has said that the celebration of the 62nd anniversary of the Victory Day was taking place within a regional and international context that requires from everyone to combine their efforts to unite the ranks and strengthen the interior front. Mariam Barshi has more.
In a message made on the occasion, the President of the Republic has said that the Algerians are celebrating this memorable anniversary at a time when priorities need to be identified according to a strategic national perspective in which full responsibility must be assumed in the face of the challenges facing our country. On top of these priorities, the President of the Republic has cited the concern to preserve the large collective contribution to the preservation of the stability enjoyed by the Algerian people within an environment marked by tensions that threaten peace and security in the region, and in a word, beset by complex conflicts, struggles and polarizations. On the occasion, the President of the Republic has praised the citizens for their high national consciousness, welcoming the commendable efforts of those involved in the associative movement and civil society. The President of the Republic paid a tribute to the valiant men among the members of the National People's Army who defend our borders, as well as to the security forces who ensure peace and serenity in society, demonstrating the utmost vigilance in carrying out their noble missions. The President of the Republic also paid tribute to the memory of the martyrs of national duty and the martyrs of the glorious Liberation Revolution, expressing his consideration and esteem for the Mujahidat and the Mujahideen, or veterans.
The President of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has said that the anniversary of the Victory Day is a reminder that the crimes committed by colonization cannot be erased from the Algerian national memory. Meanwhile, the Minister of War Veterans, Laid Barbiga, has said that the Victory Day is an opportunity to shed light on the sacrifices of all Algerians since the beginning of the French colonization of Algeria. Mariam Barshi again.
This year, the Victory Day celebrations are held under the motto Sacrifice, Victory and Loyalty. In his interview with Radio Channel 1, Mr. Biga said the Victory Day is celebrated throughout all the national territory and Algiers is hosting the official festivities.
As for the National Victory Day, this year's motto is Sacrifice, Victory and Loyalty. There are programs for the celebration of this day, notably the meetings of the National Committee, which made a national program for the celebration of the Victory Day. Algiers is hosting the official festivities and it has prepared the scientific and cultural program in addition to recognizing remote museums and tourist trips to promote the values of the Victory Day for the benefit of young people.
Regarding the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the National Liberation Revolution, Mr. Biga insisted on the need to celebrate it with special care and attention, given the vital importance granted by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to the national memory file. He also recalled the setting up of a national commission in charge of the preparation of commemorative festivities of the Revolution anniversary and placed under the leadership of the War Veterans Ministry.
Algeria celebrates today the Victory Day, marking the 62nd anniversary of the March 19th, 1962 ceasefire, moving forward thanks to the stability prevailing in the country and the achievements carried out in various areas as part of the policy of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. Majid Mila has more.
The most significant date of the month of Martis remains that associated with the celebration of the victory after the signing of the Evian Accords following a long struggle led by the heroes of the War of Liberation, bringing the French government to approve the objectives of the November Declaration, namely the recovery of Algeria's national sovereignty and territorial integrity. In 1961, official talks continued for a year until the ceasefire was declared, and after tough negotiations led by an Algerian delegation convinced of the fairness of the national cause, the total independence of Algeria was recognized within the integrity of its territory. The ceasefire became effective on March 19, 1962, followed by the holding of a self-determination referendum on July 1st, during which Algerians voted overwhelmingly in favor of independence, which was proclaimed on July 5, 1962. The inventory of material heritage plundered by the French colonizer between 1830 and 1962 continued today. As such, the Joint Commission of Algerian and French Historians on Memory met on January 25th after reviewing all the looted objects, including weapons, equipment, clothing, scripts and personal effects, particularly belonging to Emir Abdel Qadir. The two parties agreed to the digitalization of the scripts before restitution. Since the swearing-in of President Tebboune, Algeria has taken considerable steps, both internally and externally, on domestic level, as shown by economic indicators, the development and reinforced mechanisms in favor of social justice. On the external level, these achievements are reflected by the position that our country now occupies, as well as the central role that it fully assumes, proud of its historical glory, by betting on its own capacities and on innovative youth worthy of leadership roles, as affirmed the President Tebboune in various occasions.
Now, here in Algiers, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the head of the movement of El Bina, Abdelkader Ben Grina. President Tebboune has hailed the Russian President Vladimir Putin following his re-election. This was contained in a communique released by the Presidency of the Republic. Now, the Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Attaf has received a telephone call from his Slovak counterpart Juraj Blanar. On the occasion, the two sides evoked the efforts deployed by Algeria within the UN Security Council to halt the ongoing Israeli aggression against the Palestinian people. The two sides expressed their support for imposing a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. They also agreed on the holding soon of political consultations between the foreign ministries of both countries. As you followed in our top stories, as the UN affirmed that the situation of famine prevailing in Gaza results from the restrictions imposed by Israel on the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza, more Palestinians were killed in new bombardments of the territory. According to Palestinian sources, at least 93 people have been killed and scores of others wounded in airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against various areas of Gaza, including the central area of Jabalia. This brought to more than 31,800 the number of Palestinians killed since Israel launched its operations on Gaza last October. In this respect, a spokesman for the UN High Commission for Human Rights stated that the scale of the restrictions and the way Israel's hostilities continued could be tantamount to using famine as a method of war, which could be constituting a war crime. This came as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken deplored that 100% of Gaza's population was living in a serious food insecurity situation. He made the statement on the eve of a new Middle East tour aimed at securing a ceasefire. In Haiti, the delivery of humanitarian aid to the population of Port-au-Prince keeps being ravaged by gang violence amid the tense and unstable situation in the Haitian capital. Asia Bekar tells us more.
The UN Coordination Office for Humanitarian Affairs condemned the looting of UN aid, particularly the aid delivered by the UNICEF. The UN body said the looting of aid deprived children of vital health products amid a collapse in health system. The deputy spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Farhan Haq, said while there are more than 300 containers belonging to UN agencies and non-governmental organizations in Port-au-Prince, discussions are continuing with the port authorities and government agencies to secure them. The International Migration Organization said attacks and insecurity push more and more people to leave Port-au-Prince to seek refuge in other provinces, taking the risk of crossing the routes controlled by gangs. The organization said between the 8th and 14th of March, nearly 17,000 people left the capital city, with more than half of them heading towards the Great South.
Radio Algeria International is celebrating today its 17th anniversary. Different programs dedicated to its anniversary are being broadcast on rice waves. Radio Algeria International started broadcasting in 2007 with the objective of making known the word Algeria's position and perspective on major international issues. It broadcasts in 4 languages: Arabic, French, English and Spanish, and by creating this radio channel, the Algerian authorities wanted to have more openness to the word. The Algerian International Radio is hosting, on the occasion of the 17th anniversary of its creation, a conference on March 19th at 9 hours local time devoted to the Palestinian resistance. You're listening to Radio Algeria International. Next, a program on the celebration of Victory Day.
The celebration of the anniversary of Victory Day, proclaimed the day after the signing of the Evian agreements, marked the end of a long war of liberation and a courageous and heroic fight by Algerians against the brutal French colonialism. Dedicated to be the national holiday of victory in Algeria, March 19, 1962, marked the end of a long-running war of liberation won by force of arms and the determination of millions of freedom-seeking Algerians who suffered for more than a century from the horrors of the brutal colonial yoke, with the heavy toll made of countless martyrs, thousands of widows and orphans, hundreds of thousands of prisoners, detainees and disabled, as well as the destruction of thousands of villages and hamlets across the national territory. The official announcement of the ceasefire, concluded on March 18th in Evian, was thus received with immense and immeasurable joy by the Mujahideen of the Maquis of the National Liberation Army and by the entire Algerian people, who had just regained their freedom and sovereignty. Before the initialing of the Evian Agreement signed on March 18, 1962, which enshrined the country's hard-won independence, the Algerian delegation had rejected throughout these negotiations the proposals put forth by France mortgaging national sovereignty and independence. The Evian negotiations, which began on the 20th of May 1961 and which were suspended several times, were marked by the obstinacy of the French side, which put forward 3 proposals rejected by the Algerian delegation. These proposals concern the maintaining of the Algerian Sahara and the naval base on Mers el-Kebir in western Iran province under French domination, and the question of the million of French settlers living in Algeria. But in the face of the French proposal, the Algerian delegation had stuck to its position on the Sahara, which it was determined to defend at all costs, before agreeing with the French delegation to maintain French investment in the Sahara for a period of 3 years, particularly after the discovery of oil there. With regard to the status of the French settlers in Algeria after independence, both sides agreed or reached an agreement granting a period of 3 years to the French to choose Algerian nationality or to retain their French nationality and be treated in accordance with the laws governing foreigners here in Algeria. With regard to the Mers el-Kebir naval base located in Iran province in western Algeria, the proposal submitted by the French side that France would operate a base for 99 years. As the Algerian delegation's rejection of this proposal was categorical, it was agreed to grant a 15-year concession to France. In the euphoria of independence, the country was called upon to embark on a long historical process, that of fighting for the construction of the country, which will draw all its essence from the spirit that marks the process of recovering national sovereignty in order to remove the country from foreign occupation. In line with this logic, and on the occasion of the anniversary of Victory Day, the Algerians ought to be like their fathers and ancestors, the architects of events and successes, the builders of a potent and solid Algeria in terms of sustainable economy and unfading security. It should be stressed at the same time that it was the day when our valiant people sounded the death knell for a long colonial nightmarish period, standing proudly and with dignity at the end of the glorious November 1954 Liberation War, whose valiant craftsmen were the children of this people. A generation armed with an unwavering will and faith, and who paid a heavy price for the wrenching of Algeria's freedom and independence, with the sacrifices of millions of glorious martyrs, invalids, widows, and orphans, notwithstanding the widespread destruction and the untold tragedies that have affected all families throughout the country during the harsh colonial yoke. If March 19, 1962, the date of the ceasefire, was snatched away thanks to the sacrifices of the Shuhada or martyrs and Mujahideen, it was also the result of bitter negotiations conducted by the Algerian delegation of struggling Algeria, which demonstrated great intelligence and competence in negotiating with the occupier. Driven by loyalty and fidelity to the country, the Algerian delegation was able, despite the enemy's references and resources, to snatch our people's right to freedom and sovereignty over all its entire territory. Through this lofty epic of unflagging struggle and well-conducted negotiations, the Algerian people have given, through their glorious revolution, an admirable image of the militant journey that makes us proud today and will make us proud tomorrow.
حياتي